Pre-cellular. Before mobile networks existed, making a call meant finding a wire. There was no such thing as talking while moving. The only people with portable communication were the military and emergency services, and even that required equipment the size of a suitcase. In the 1940s and 1950s, radio telephone systems appeared for civilians, but these could only handle a handful of calls at a time, covered tiny areas, and cost a fortune. Ordinary people had no access. The idea of calling someone from anywhere seemed completely impossible. That frustration pushed engineers toward something the world had never seen before: 1G. Mobile networks didn't start with apps, streaming, or social media. They started with one simple goal: make a phone call without a wire. The world's first commercial 1G network launched in Japan in 1979. For the first time, people could make voice calls from a handheld device while moving. The United States joined in 1983 with the launch of AMPS, which stands for Advanced Mobile Phone System. This is where the legendary Motorola Dynatac appeared. The original brick phone. If you've ever seen a photo of 1980s mobile technology, this is the image. A beige rectangle with an antenna longer than your forearm. It weighed around 2 pounds, cost nearly $4,000 at launch, roughly $12,000 in today's money, and delivered a glorious 30 minutes of talk time. Portable, yes. Convenient? Absolutely not. However, 1G was entirely analog. Voice signals were sent as raw radio waves with zero encryption. Anyone with basic radio equipment could listen to private conversations like it was a public broadcast. Call quality was full of static and interference. Despite all that, 1G proved something important. Mobile communication was possible. 2G. 1G could make calls, but calls were insecure. Coverage was unreliable, and there was still no way to send a message. 2G changed all of that at once. The first commercial 2G network went live on July 1, 1991, launched by Radio Linja in Finland. Finnish Prime Minister Harry Holkeri made the world's first official GSM call using a Nokia handset. It wasn't flashy, but it quietly flipped the entire mobile industry upside down. The biggest shift was analog to digital. Digital encryption meant calls were finally private. No more strangers listening in with radio scanners. Networks could also support far more users at once, which meant fewer dropped calls and more reliable coverage. However, the real game changer was SMS text messaging. The first SMS was sent on December 3, 1992. The message read, "Merry Christmas." It was sent from a computer to a phone, and almost nobody cared. Carriers didn't think it would matter. Then the late 1990s happened. Teenagers were firing off texts under classroom desks without looking. A new language was born. LOL, BRB, and WID, because every character cost money, and thumbs were slow. This era also gave the world the Nokia 3310, a phone so indestructible it became a cultural icon. You had Snake, the game that turned every waiting room and boring class into a personal high-score competition. Phones shrank from bricks into slim candy bar designs. Suddenly, everyone had one. Data existed on 2G, but speed sat around 9.6 kilobits per second. Enough for basic emails and web pages that looked like the internet. 3G. Texts worked. Basic browsing worked. But smartphones needed real internet to survive. That's exactly what 3G was built for. The first commercial 3G network launched in Japan in October 2001. The promise was enormous. Real mobile internet, video calling, multimedia messaging, and a phone that could genuinely replace a computer for basic tasks. Early 3G speeds reached around 384 kilobits per second in real-world use. That doesn't sound impressive now, but at the time it was life-changing. Phones could finally load actual websites instead of those stripped-down WAP pages that looked like the internet had been faxed to you. Then came the upgrades. SPA, often called 3.5G, pushed speeds to 7.2 megabits per second. SPA Plus, sometimes called 3.75G, stretched that to 21 megabits per second and beyond. Fast enough, eventually. What did 3G actually enable? The iPhone launched in 2007. Android followed in 2008. Without 3G, neither would have mattered. Apps, YouTube, Google Maps, and email with attachments all became genuinely usable on a phone for the first time. The App Store in 2008 would have been completely pointless on 2G speeds. However, it wasn't perfect. Coverage was inconsistent outside major cities. Battery life took a serious hit. Streaming video felt like watching 3 pixels argue with a loading bar. 3G opened the door to the smartphone era. It just couldn't fully keep up with what it created. 4G LTE. This is where mobile internet stopped making excuses and finally grew up. The first commercial 4G LTE networks launched in December 2009 in Stockholm and Oslo. Real-world download speeds reached between 20 and 50 megabits per second. That was roughly 10 times faster than 3G. HD video finally worked without buffering. Apps like Uber, Instagram, and Snapchat were built entirely around 4G speeds, and would have been unusable on anything slower. 4G also turned the phone into something completely new. A mini office, entertainment center, and game console all in one device. Social media exploded. Mobile gaming went real-time. Streaming services like Netflix and Spotify became mobile-first experiences because the network could actually support them. Latency dropped to around 30 to 50 milliseconds, making real-time apps smooth enough to forget that 3G ever existed. This was also the era of the Samsung Galaxy. While Apple refined its formula, Samsung's Galaxy S series became the face of Android on 4G. Big screens, expandable storage, and enough power to finally make Android feel genuinely premium. Many users stayed on 3G longer than they expected. Despite this, 4G LTE remains the dominant network standard for most of the world today. 5G. 5G launched commercially in April 2019 in South Korea. This was supposed to be the network that changed everything overnight. There are 2 main types of 5G. Sub-6 GHz is the everyday 5G that most users actually experience. It penetrates buildings, covers wide areas, and delivers speeds between 100 and 400 megabits per second. Fast, reliable, and genuinely useful. Then there is mmWave, or millimeter wave. This version can theoretically hit speeds of 1 to 2 gigabits per second. Sounds incredible, but it is extremely fragile. Walls, trees, and even heavy rain can block the signal. It only works reliably in dense environments like stadiums, airports, and city centers. In real-world use, South Korea averages around 360 megabits per second on 5G, making it the current speed leader globally. Latency dropped to between 1 and 10 milliseconds compared to 30 to 50 on 4G. However, for most users, 5G doesn't feel dramatically different from fast 4G in daily use. Scrolling through social media on 5G looks identical to scrolling on 4G. The real impact of 5G is happening behind the scenes, in smart cities, industrial automation, and connected infrastructure. Advanced. 5G Advanced was officially defined in 2022, with networks beginning to roll out around 2024. Unlike standard 5G, which focused on establishing the network, 5G Advanced focuses on making it smarter, faster, and more efficient. Download speeds are expected to reach up to 10 gigabits per second in optimal conditions. Upload speeds improve significantly, which matters for real-time applications like augmented reality and cloud gaming. Support for connected devices expands dramatically, meaning smart home gadgets, industrial sensors, and wearables connect more reliably than ever before. However, 5G Advanced requires major infrastructure investment. Most users won't notice a dramatic difference from standard 5G in everyday life. The real benefits will arrive in specialized industries like healthcare, manufacturing, and autonomous transportation over the next several years. 6G. Every generation solved the problems of the one before it. 6G is being designed to solve problems that don't fully exist yet. 6G is still in the research and development phase. Companies like Nokia, Ericsson, Samsung, Qualcomm, and Huawei are all racing toward it. Countries including the United States, China, Japan, and South Korea have committed billions to 6G research. Commercial deployment is not expected until the early 2030s, with some predictions placing South Korea at the forefront as early as 2028. Theoretical speeds could reach 1 terabit per second. That is nearly 100 times faster than 5G. Latency could drop below 0.1 milliseconds. Connection density could support 100 million devices per square kilometer, 10 times what 5G can handle. 6G is also expected to integrate artificial intelligence directly into the network itself, enable holographic communication, and support digital twins of entire cities. However, much of this remains theoretical. The technology required to achieve these capabilities does not fully exist yet. We said similar things about 5G, and most users didn't notice daily improvements for years after launch. Infrastructure costs will be astronomical, and most people don't need speeds beyond 5G for anything they currently do. But if history is any guide, each generation has always delivered more than the previous one imagined was possible.